pony, took a trip, tried caviar. This is crazy. And another grand, another grand, another grand.
With a prize of $1,000 a day for life, the new Cash for Life draw game is your ticket to a grand day every day.
Bias on the bench. An in-depth analysis shows blacks are being given longer prison sentences than whites in Florida, even if they commit the same crime.
In any way, do you think this is racial?
Absolutely. It is racist. It is. It is.
The Florida sentencing system is broken and biased. That's the finding of a study looking at a decade of convictions and sentences.
NBC2 investigator David Hodges has been poring over the results for Southwest Florida, where the problem was also found.
Like most areas across the state, the records compiled by the Sarasota Herald-Tribune show black defendants here tend to get longer prison sentences than whites. Tonight, there are many calling for reform.
Be seated.
A Collier County court audience is told to take a seat, but Kyrie Seymour has supporters standing with him.
I am heartbroken.
Alana Roden is Seymour's grandmother.
We're here for him unconditionally, and we're going down with him.
With her is Collier County NAACP President Vincent Keys. He's not there protesting Seymour's innocence, but ensuring he is treated fairly in the courtroom.
Do you think there's an issue with racial bias in the judicial system?
Well, I honestly believe that there's a big bias.
All of us have perhaps a level of implicit bias, and certainly the judges are not immune to that.
Emily Lacaze is an investigations editor at the Sarasota Herald-Tribune. With her colleagues, she analyzed criminal convictions across Florida from 2004 to 2015.
There were 82 million records.
They found blacks were often receiving longer sentences than whites for the same crime.
We saw that felony drug crimes were often the cause of the greatest disparities.
And the same criminal history.
You would expect that defendants with the same scores would generally receive about the same sentences, but that is absolutely not what we found.
In Lee County, they found blacks are sentenced to an average of 1,586 days in prison when convicted of robbery. Whites are sentenced to 1,090 days. Lacaze says their records show whites are more likely to get leniency from judges, a majority of whom are also white.
It looked like from the data whites were getting less harsh sentences.
According to the Herald-Tribune data, Lee County Judge Ramiro Manuelich had some of the greatest disparities in Southwest Florida, sentencing blacks to more than twice the time of whites for drug possession, robbery, and burglary. We wrote Judge Manuelich a letter asking for an interview. Instead, we received a response from the court's public information officer. She says the Herald-Tribune didn't account for sentences imposed after a trial by judges versus those agreed upon between prosecutors and defense attorneys ahead of time.
The buck stops with the judge.
We spoke with retired Collier County Judge Frank Baker about the issue, who told us we want to be fair and give the appearance of fairness, but sometimes things play a role in what we do, and you may need to guard against that. He said he doesn't believe implicit bias happens regularly and that most judges take pride in the fact that justice is blind.
I think it occurs in all of us.
The article has sparked interest from a new group called Showing Up for Racial Justice in Southwest Florida. Rachel Bass is a member and was also at Kyrie Seymour's hearing.
We can't deny, the numbers aren't going to change. The numbers don't lie.
Bass says it's not about pointing fingers, but recognizing the problem.
We don't believe that any judge wants to be biased against people of different races. The first step is acknowledging a problem and facing it.
Online at NBC-2.com, we've posted a link where you can look at local judges' sentencing records. Also, you can read more about why some critics are questioning whether those numbers tell the whole story. For the NBC2 investigators, I'm David Hodges.
Call, email, or download.
Florida's broken sentencing system designed for fairness. It fails to account for prejudice. Justice has never been blind when it comes to race in Florida. Blacks were first at the mercy of slave masters. Then came Jim Crow segregation and the Ku Klux Klan. Now, prejudice wears a black robe. Half a century after the civil rights movement, trial judges throughout Florida sentence blacks to harsher punishment than whites, a Herald-Tribune investigation found. They offer blacks fewer chances to avoid jail or scrub away felonies. They give blacks more time behind bars, sometimes double the sentences of whites accused of the same crimes under identical circumstances. Florida lawmakers have struggled for 30 years to create a more equitable system. Points are now used to calculate sentences based on the severity of the crime, the defendant's prior record, and a host of other factors. The idea is to punish criminals in Pensacola the same as those in Key West, no matter their race, gender, or wealth. But the point system has not stopped discrimination. In Manatee County, judges sentence whites convicted of felony drug possession to an average of 5 months behind bars. They give blacks with identical charges and records more than a year. Judges in the Florida Panhandle County of Okaloosa sentence whites to nearly 5 months for battery. They lock up blacks for almost a year. Along the state's northeast shore, judges in Flagler County put blacks convicted of armed robbery away for nearly triple the time.